Okay, I now have the record button on. As I said before, if you don't want to be recorded, then you should definitely drop off. This will be shared with all of your classmates for those who couldn't make it. All right, so this is your time. I'm here to answer any of your questions. So feel free to either unmute yourself or put something in the chat.
I have a question. For can we ask questions on the TVM problem sheet?
Sure, the one that's posted in Canvas?
Yes.
Okay.
With like the 9 problems.
Mm-hmm.
I was on number 5. I thought I plugged everything in correctly, like in my calculator, talking about the. So it says like 5 years, and there's an 8% interest rate, monthly compounding interest. And I know like you're supposed to multiply the n times the 12 and divide the 8% by 12 to get like 0.0067. It's just, I wasn't sure really if you're supposed to change a percent to like just 0.67 when you enter into your calculator, or use like 0.0067.
Okay, so let me see if I can pull this up so that everybody can see it at the same time.
The answers to this sheet, or?
Yes, they are posted on Canvas as well, and I will show you where they are.
Okay, that's great. I did print out, like, there's one section that says answers to sample problems. It doesn't have the answers on my sheet.
Oh, it doesn't?
No, I'm not sure. So it has like the exam day, the questions,
Oh,
and
because,
what you need to know.
okay. Oh, all right. So let me go back and I will show you. I can also email these. Let me share my screen so that all of you can see what I'm about to show you. So first, let me show you where it is. So this is my Canvas page. We are starting week 6 today, but it's under week 5. So module 1, week 5. And here at the bottom, see where it says chapter 5, time value of money sample problems. I think this is what you're working on, right, Alexandra? Okay.
Yes.
And then here are the answers right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I printed out the email things. I'm sorry.
No, because I sent you a lot of problems. so you probably, I can understand why you'd be confused. I think I sent these as problems, and I don't think I didn't send the answers, I just posted them.
Okay.
But they're right here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now let me see if I can pull up the problems so that everybody can see it. I think I have to stop share. All right, hold on, maybe it's this way. Okay, so these are the problems you're referring to, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you're talking about number 5. Okay. Okay, so it says it has a total drive-out cost of $25,700, which is, that's kind of a weird way to put it. So we'll talk about that in a second. You make a down payment of $3,598. The remainder of the car's costs will be financed over a period of 5 years. You will repay the loan by making equal monthly payments. Your quoted annual interest rate is 8% with monthly compounding interest. Okay. And then the question says, what will your monthly payment be? So what did you put as your variables, Alexandra?
In my calculator, I wrote it down. I put N as 60. The I was at 0.0067. And I think that's where I went wrong, looking at the answers now. And then I did the present value as the 22,102, question mark for the PMT, and the future value was 0.
So you did 25. I'm trying to do it while I'm talking to you. Okay, so let me see if I can pull up the answer sheet. So here's the answers to number 5. Yep, that's what I got as well, so they're right. Did you get this? So you said 60 was N, you did 5 years times 12,
Yes.
right? So that sounded right. You took your I, you did 8% divided by 12.
I
So
did
that sounded right.
so you're not supposed to do 0.08, correct?
No.
Okay, I think that's where, because I did that before I typed it in. So should I just put 0.667 into the I?
No. So the easiest thing to do is put, so when it says 8%, just put 8.
8 divided by
Don't put just 8 divided by 12. So when you go to I, just literally type 8 divided by 12 and hit enter.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that helps.
Does that work?
That works. I think I did it before, like I typed in my calculator what it was.
You can also do that. So if you wanted to, you could just say 0.6667, enter for I. Both ways will work.
Okay, that makes sense because I did like using 8 as a percent, I did 0.08 divided by 12.
Right. And then it's going to screw you up. Yep. So when we're entering percents, this is for all your problems, all your time value of money problems. Don't put 0.0 whatever, just put the number. So if the number is 17.34%, you would literally just enter 17.34.
Okay, that helps.
Okay.
And then I did get the right answer this time.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Miss
I'm
Bush,
glad you asked. Yep.
let me just stack onto that real quickly for that question that you just answered for her.
Mhm.
The part at the end where it says the first payment will be due 1 month after the purchase date, the reason they say that is to indicate that it's something like the end. It's an end type of payment, right? It happens at the end of the month. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Corey, what's your question? I saw you have a question mark in the chat, but I don't know what you're asking about. All right, we'll move on. Oh, okay. So Corey is bringing up that there are two, so I gave you a bunch of time value money problems. In the study guide, I gave you a bunch of problems, and then in the email I sent to you, I attached the study guide, and I also attached the answers to the problems in the study guide. On my Canvas page, under week 5, there are also more time value of money questions, and those are the ones I was just going over with Alexandria. And the answers to those are also on Canvas. And I see Young just sent the link for it, so thank you for that. Let me also, I'm going to pull this back up. I'm going to reshare because I do want to point out something here to make sure everybody's clear on that question she just raised. Let's see, which is here. Because it's kind of weirdly phrased. You plan to buy a car that has a total drive-out cost of $25,700. That basically means that's the cost of the vehicle. Okay, so that's what you've gone to the dealership, you've negotiated with the dealer, and you guys have settled on a price of $25,700. So then it says you will make a down payment of $3,598. So what that means is, so you're not borrowing $25,700. You're borrowing $25,700 minus your down payment, which, let's see, on my calculator was $22,102. So that's the present value, because that's the amount you're borrowing today, right? You have to, if you're buying a car, you have to pay for it today, so you've got to borrow the money today. So that would be your present value. I think you heard Alexandria and I talking about how we find the I and the N. Since the question asked, what are the monthly payments? You want everything to be in months. So therefore, you're going to put N times 12 and I divided by 12. Right, and your future value is 0 because after you finish paying down the car, you will not owe anything. After your last payment, you'll owe 0. So your future value will be 0 and you solve for PMT. Are there any questions on that? Everybody's good. Okay. I do see, let's see, I thought there were some things in the chat. Number 9 of the study guide, sure. Let me pull that. Oh, just let me put you on hold for 1 second, okay? All right, sorry folks about that. I'm pulling up, let's see, I think I can share my screen. I've pulled up the study guide. And it says problem 9, okay? Okay. So this is problem 9. It says you are excited. The bank stated that you qualify for a $224,587 30-year mortgage to buy your first home. If you agree to make monthly payments of $1,733 at the beginning of each month, what is the annual rate of interest the bank is charging you for the loan? Okay, is this the problem that you guys want to discuss? I'm seeing some things in the chat.
Yeah, this is the
Cecilia?
problem.
This is
This
one.
is the problem I asked for.
Okay, all right.
I was seeing the wrong one, my bad.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so when it says a mortgage, all that means is that you are borrowing money to buy a house. That's specifically what a mortgage is. Which is, I agree with you guys, like, it's like, why can't we just say, so it's a house loan? For whatever reason, they just call it a mortgage, okay? But it works very similarly to a car loan, if you want to think about it in that way. So you're going to borrow a lump sum today, you're going to make monthly payments, and after some period of time, you won't owe any more money and the house will be yours completely. So that's the idea. So this one, it tells you how much you're borrowing. Cecilia, did you have any ideas? Did you have any numbers for variables? Or do you want me to go over all the variables?
No, like I'm not sure where to start. Like what because we're looking for the interest rate, right? So
Right.
I'm not sure if I can just put this in my calculator because I don't think I have enough numbers. And then I'm not sure which like formula to use for that.
Okay. So you can put it in your calculator. You have everything you need and we'll go through it. And you actually answered the first question, which was where should we start? Because you said, I know I'm looking for interest. So that's a great place to start, making sure you know what you're looking for. So you're looking for the I. This is a way better problem to do in a calculator. The formula would be the typical formula that we would use for a present value of an annuity. But finding the I is a little bit more complicated. You have to do some serious algebra to get it. So you're borrowing money. So the money that you're borrowing is your present value. So in this case, that would be the $224,587. So that's what you're borrowing. So kind of similar to the problem we just did where you were borrowing money for a car and we subtracted out the down payment and what was left was what you were borrowing. So if this said that there was going to be a down payment, we would subtract that. But in this case, it doesn't mention anything about down payment. So in my calculator, I'm going to say that I'm borrowing $224,587 and I input that, I'm going to input that as present value. Okay, so go ahead and put that in your calculator as present value. Anybody on this call have any idea what our future value might be?
0.
0.
It's 0, yep. Because after we make the last payment 30 years from now, we won't owe any more money on the loan. It'll be 0. So we put future value as 0. So I'll put that in my calculator. We don't know I, that's what we're solving for, so we'll skip that for a minute. Let's go up to our N. It says it's 30 years, right? So you're gonna make payments over 30 years. So normally we would put 30 in our N, but it says we're making monthly payments. Does anybody know how many months are in a year?
12. So 30.
12.
12.
Yes, so 30 times 12. Okay, so your N, I just typed 30 times 12 and hit enter. And so my N now says 360. Okay, the last number we need to input before we can solve is our payment. And it tells us that the payments are $1,733. So I'm gonna input that, but before I do that, notice it says it's at the beginning of each month. Someone tell me, what type of an annuity is this?
An annuity due.
You're absolutely right, it's an annuity due because it says it's at the beginning. So make sure you change your calculator, and I'm gonna change mine right now, from end to begin mode. If you don't do that, you're gonna get it wrong. Okay, so I've now changed my calculator to begin mode. The calculator knows I'm dealing with an annuity due. So remember I told you guys with these financial calculators, and it doesn't matter what type you have, this is true for all of them, one of the numbers has to be negative. When I say numbers, meaning one of the dollar amounts. So your present value, your payment, or your future value must be negative. I input my present value to $224,587 as a positive number. So when I input my payment amount, I have to make it negative, otherwise it doesn't work in the calculator. This is not true if you're using the equation. This is just for the financial calculator, and it's all financial calculators. So if you enter in present value as positive, and then you're going to enter in another dollar amount for payments, the payments need to be negative. Okay. And on the TI 8384, there is a negative sign in parentheses at the very bottom. That's the one you use. Don't use the subtraction key. And the same thing on the BA2 plus, at the very bottom of the keypad, you will see a plus minus sign, and you can hit that to make a number negative. So I look at my calculator, I have 360 is my N. I have positive 224,587 is my present value. I have negative 1,733 as my payment. I have 0 as future value, and I have changed my calculator to begin mode. I then scroll up to my I hit alpha and enter. Cecilia, are you with me so far, or would you like me to go over something else before we talk about the I?
No, I think I'm with you. I just want to calculate this real quick because
Okay.
I feel like I've gotten, like, I think I did it the same way, and I get 0.07.
You get 0.718, something, something, something? For your I?
0.72. That's what I get.
Yep. Okay.
But that's
Okay.
not what it says in the answer, right?
That is not the answer. And the reason that's not, but it's close. So don't do anything, because we still got one more step to do. The reason that's not the answer is because the question says, what is the annual rate of interest?
Oh, so this is
It's
for each
asking.
month?
This is for each month. So
Smart.
all you need to do is just go to the end of that number, hit the multiplication font sign, and multiply by 12.
That makes sense.
And if you think about this, we kind of did this in reverse, but remember I was telling you, if you multiply your N by 12, you divide your I by 12.
Yeah.
So now your I should say 8.62. So if I was solving, let's say, for payment in this problem, I would take the 8.62 and I would divide it by 12. So we basically just work backwards.
If we ever get, like, if I forget this and I see there's like a decimal number in there, I should think like, oh, this is monthly, so I should multiply it. or quarterly or whatever it could be. Is that a good way to think of it?
It's a good idea to, if you see that number, to check what the question is asking for. If it was asking for what is the monthly rate of interest, then you would have input the number that you got.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I want to make sure is, and we haven't talked a lot about APR, but sometimes the questions will say, what is the APR, which means what is the annual rate of interest? So that would be asking the same question. Okay, I guess for kicks, would you guys like to do B, or you want to move on to a different question?
We do B as well.
Okay, let's do B. So B says you decide you want to pay $1,380 monthly at the beginning of each month for the next 30 years as your mortgage payment. If the hurdle rate remains the same, what changes and by how much? So basically, this is basically following the same problem. So you're still borrowing the same amount. So your present value hasn't changed, still $224,587. Your time period hasn't changed either. So your N is still 30 years times 12 for 12 months. So your N should be 360. It says your hurdle rate remains the same. Hurdle rate is another way of saying interest rate. Remember I was telling you guys in class, there's lots of ways to refer to interest rate. But don't let it scare you. If it says hurdle rate, that just means interest rate. So your hurdle rate remains the same. So the hurdle rate we just solved for, or the interest rate we just solved for, that 8.62 also doesn't change. So the only thing, oh, and the future value doesn't change. In the future, when you're finished making your last payment, your future value will be 0. So the only thing that's changing is your payment amount. And it says, instead of paying $1,733 at the beginning of each month, you want to pay $1,380 at the beginning of each month. So I'm going to leave everything in my calculator the same. I'm scrolling to my payment and I'm putting in negative 1,380 for the payment. If you have the BA2 plus, you can do the same thing, just leave everything the same and just enter in the different payment amount, making sure that it is negative. So then the question says, what changes and by how much? So if I change the payment, and keep the time period the same and the interest rate the same, what's going to change is the amount of money that I can borrow. If I'm paying less each month, I can't borrow the same amount of money. So that means my present value is different. So now I'm going to scroll back up to present value and I'm going to resolve for it with my new payment. And make sure your I is divided by 12. I know that sometimes because we just multiplied it by 12. So make sure you divide it by 12. Which makes sense, right? Like if you go into a car dealer and the car dealer says you can buy this car for $30,000 and your payments will be $30 a month. I mean, $300 a month. And you say, I can't afford $300 a month. I can only pay $200 a month. They're either going to raise your interest rate or they're going to tell you, okay, you need to find a cheaper car. So in this case, the interest rate stayed the same. So therefore, the amount that you can afford to borrow in total for the loan goes down. Any questions on this one?
I got a different number for my present value.
Okay. Tell me what your variables are.
My N is 360. My I is 0.718. And my payment is negative 1380.
Your payment is negative what?
1380.
I'm sorry. 1380.
Yeah.
And you have it set on begin?
I do.
Okay. Which calculator are you using?
Welcome to lesson 2 of
Yeah, 84.
Okay. It sounds like they're all correct. So scroll back up to present value and try to resolve it again.
I'm getting 178,846.
Oh, okay. That's probably because your I is just slightly different than mine due to rounding. That's all. It sounds like it's
Okay.
just a rounding thing. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So if I get 1,700, 7,800 and 458. I don't know if that made sense. Which is
Okay,
like,
say that again.
which is like 400 below what it says, or 300 below what it says. Is that also
What is your I?
0 or 0.72?
Yeah, it's just because your I is different.
Okay.
So some people in the calculator, like in my calculator, I use the full I. So I took 8 divided by 12, and that's my I. 8.62 divided by 12. Some people might use a slightly different I, and it's going to make your answer slightly different. Okay. So I've tried to account for that in the exam to make sure that you aren't penalized if your decimals are slightly different.
I just joined in. Can I ask a question, or are you guys going through one right now?
We just finished number 9, so you are welcome to ask a question.
Can you go over a Dutch auction? How to solve a Dutch auction? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think on this, I think I have one. Oh, yeah, here's one right here. Hold on.
Awesome. Thank you for hosting this, by the way.
Not a problem. So this is the study guide, and number 7 of the study guide, on question 7 on the study guide, is a Dutch auction.
Mhm.
And okay, so Freedom Company wants to sell 1,500 shares of stock using the Dutch auction method. The company received the following bids. We've got all the bidders, how many shares they want, and at what price. So the first question says, how many shares will Wellington receive and at what price? And then the second question says, how many shares will Vanguard receive at what price? And then last question says, how much money was raised in total? So those are our 3 questions. Okay, so I tell people when you do a Dutch auction on the exam, I would highly suggest taking these bids and putting them in order from highest bid, meaning highest price bid, to lowest price bid. It makes it a lot easier. So the highest, go ahead.
The first step is organizing from highest to lowest by price.
Yes.
Okay.
So the highest price bid is $45 by Progressive. So remember, the company wants to raise as much money as possible. So they want to take the highest price if they can. But if they take this highest price bid of $45, they only get 700 shares, right? Because that's all Progressive wants at $45.
Right.
The company wants to sell 1,500 shares. So if they take the Progressive bid, they will not sell enough shares. So then they have to go down to the next price. The next highest price is $41 a share by Putnam. And Putnam says, I'm willing to buy 200 shares at $41 a share. You guys see that? So if I add the shares that Putnam is willing to buy, plus the shares that Progressive is willing to buy, it's still not enough. And let me just see if I can copy. I might be able to put this in Excel for you guys. It might be a little bit easier to see. Hold on for a second. Let me see if I can pop it in Excel. Let's see. Well, let's see. I think I can. Just give me a second. I'm trying to put it in Excel so you can see it better.
Awesome.
I got it here. Someone remind me, was it 1,500 shares? What they were trying to sell?
I don't have it pulled up. I don't know.
It is 1,500.
1,500, okay. So I'm popped it in Excel here, and I'm just gonna put it in order so you guys can see it a little bit better. Show you my screen. Okay.
I have a question.
Yep, hold on for just a second. I'm just trying to pop something in here to finish showing you how to do this Dutch auction question. So bear with me. Trying to make sure I label stuff so we know what's what. Okay. All right, so let me share my screen so you guys can see this. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see this, and see if I can make it a little bit bigger. So this was the question. I believe I typed this right. Progressive wanted 700 shares at $45. Putnam wanted 200 shares at $41. Wellington wants 1,300 shares at $40. And Vanguard wanted 1,200 shares at $39. Okay, so I told you start with the high price, which would be $45. Notice I put everything in order. If Freedom accepts $45 as the price, the only people who are willing to pay $45 is Progressive. And they will only sell 700 shares. But Freedom wants to sell 1,500 shares. So that's not enough shares. So then they go down to the next price, $41. I say, okay, well, if I price the shares at $41, how many shares can I sell? Well, Putnam says, hey, we'll buy 200 shares at $41. Like, okay, that's great. Now keep in mind, these bids are for the maximum amount that they would pay for the shares. They are certainly happy to pay less than this. Okay. So Progressive says the most I would pay for shares is $45. But if you price them at 41, I am most definitely interested in doing that, right? If I'm willing to pay 45, I'm definitely willing to pay less than 45. So I'll pay $41 a share, and I'll still, take 700. But if you add those two up, that's just 900 shares. And the company wants to sell 1,500. So now they have to go down to $40 a share. At $40 a share, they can sell 1,300 to Wellington. But don't forget about Putnam and Progressive. Putnam would also be willing to buy 200 shares because they're willing to buy them at $41 or less. And Progressive would be willing to buy 700 shares because they're willing to pay $45 or less. So our winning price is $40 a share. So now what we need to figure out, I'm gonna insert some rows here. We have to figure out, well, how many shares is each person gonna get? And the reason we have to figure that out is because at $40 a share, more people want shares than what we have available.
Right.
Okay, here, I'll put comments in here just to make it a little bit easier. So now we've got to figure out, well, how many shares are we really going to give them? So what we do is we do a very simple division. We take the number of shares available to sell, and we divide it by the total number of shares that people want to buy. So the number of shares that Freedom wants to sell is 1,500. The number of shares that the bidders will buy at $40 a share is 2,200. So when I do that math, it's going to be a percentage. There we go, 68%.
Okay, and you only use with that calculation, you only use the ones that are above the $40, you wouldn't use the Vanguard, right? Because it's not
That
part
is
of,
correct.
it's not got it. Okay.
Yep. Because Vanguard says we are willing to pay no more than $39 and the
Right.
winning bid is 40. So
Okay.
they're out. They get nothing.
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay. So now if we want to figure out how many shares each of these guys get, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take 68%. Oops, let me do it this way. Times the number of shares they said they wanted.
Yep. All right, that's simple enough. That makes sense. Yeah.
All right, and then we'll just carry it out. So I'll just show you what it would be for Progressive. Oops.
That
So,
makes sense.
Times. So Progressive would get 477 shares.
Okay.
Okay. And I would do the same for everybody else, but let's see, I have to make this. Anybody else have any questions on this one?
Yeah, I have a question. Are we going to round
Go ahead.
down when it comes to these, or round up as far as percent?
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. What did you say?
Give me 1 second. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So when it comes to the percent of each amount of shares you're going to get, are we going to round down, or how's that work? Because I ended up rounding up.
So did you get, I didn't see what 68 was. Did you say you rounded to a different number other than 68%?
Yes, I got 69 when I rounded.
Okay. Well, I don't know exactly why you got that, because when I did it in Excel, I actually get 68.18. You may just want to check the math there.
Yeah, I looked at it wrong. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the Dutch auction? All right. And so keep in mind that Vanguard would get 0 shares
Right.
because
they won't
their
pay.
bid is too low.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. The last thing I should show you is if I add these shares up, notice it equals 1,500. So that's exactly how many shares Freedom wanted to sell.
And what was the benefit of doing it in a Dutch auction? Just if it's a conceptual type question.
Yep, that's a very good concept question, so I'm glad you asked me. Companies like to think about doing Dutch auctions because they're cheaper. So they still use an investment bank, but the investment bank does not guarantee the outcome. The investment bank is just the auctioneer, right? Everybody sends their bids to the investment bank. The investment bank puts them in order and figures out who gets shares.
Gotcha.
So the investment bank's fee is a lot lower. So it's a lot cheaper for the company. So that's one reason people like to think about it. Another reason is because there is a belief, and in some of the articles I've showed you this past week, this is what people were talking about in those articles. There is a belief that if you do a underwritten IPO where the investment bank buys all the shares from the company, so in this case, the investment bank would buy 1,500 shares from the company at some price, and then they would turn around and sell it to the public, right? Basically to Progressive, Putnam, and all these people at a different price, a higher price. There's a belief that when the investment bank buys the shares from the company and turns around to sell it, they really price the shares too low.
So they're taking advantage of them, basically.
That's basically what the belief
Okay.
is. And the reason people say they think that's happening is because then when these companies, Progressive, Putnam, and whoever, they buy the shares and they turn around and sell them in the public market, they are getting almost double what they paid for it in some cases.
Yeah, that's wild.
So that's why Google said, yeah, we don't want to do this underwritten IPO. We think that we'll have great interest for our shares in a Dutch auction, and we think we can get, we want to get as high a price as possible.
Okay.
So that's the second reason. The third reason is because when the investment bank is involved in an underwritten IPO, and even the best efforts, they're only going to go to these types of companies and ask them to buy shares. They don't ask us to buy shares because they want to go to people who can buy a lot of shares and they can write checks in the millions. So they're going to Fidelity, Putnam, Progressive Insurance, Wellington, those types of folks. Google said, we would like everybody in the public to be able to buy shares. So in a Dutch auction, anybody can submit a bid. And I think Google set the minimum bid for, I think it was 50 shares, I think was the least amount you could buy. So that was affordable for some people. So that was the third reason.
Okay, so it's cheap. They may not get ripped off, basically, and they want everybody to be able to buy shares, not just big companies or people with like millions.
You got it.
Got it.
That's a great summary.
Thank you.
Professor, I have a
Any other-
question.
Mhm. Sure.
So when you're solving for cash flows, you're only doing the interest based off the time period that it's asking for. So like if you got a cash flow in period 1 and then another cash flow in period 3, and you were looking for what they would be in 5, you would do how much time they're gaining interest, correct?
Okay, so let me make sure I understand your example. So you're getting, let's say, $100 at the end of year 1 and $300 at the end of year 3. And the question is, how much is that both of those worth together in 5 years? Is that what
Yes.
you were saying?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So then for my first amount, I would input $100. That would be my present value. And I would count from the time I receive the money going forward if I'm doing future value. So yes, you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Can we run through a full underwriting problem?
Sure. Do you have one in particular you want to do?
No, I just, the concept of it all.
All right, let me see. Let me see if I can pull up one that we can take a look at.
There was one from your PowerPoint that we didn't follow through on, wasn't there?
Oh, okay. I'll pull up the PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. I'm pulling it up now. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see this. So this is one of the examples we had done in class with a fully underwritten IPO. And these are good to practice because sometimes it takes a minute just to get the terminology together, and that's half the battle right there. Okay, so the Pharma Development Company wants to raise 31.7 million via an underwritten IPO to finance its R&D efforts. The offer price is $33.78 per share, and the company's underwriters charge a spread of 7.5%. The SEC filing fee and associated legal and accounting expenses of the offering are $1,457,000. Pharma estimates it will incur $830,927 in indirect costs, and the company received $31.25 per share from the offering. How many shares need to be sold, and what is the investment bank's fee? Okay. So for the how many shares need to be sold, the easiest way to do it is to figure out, well, how big does the offering need to be? So remember, the offering, or how much money is going to be raised from this IPO, needs to be enough that Pharma Development nets, at the end of the day, after expenses, they net $31.7 million. But they also have to raise enough to pay the underwriters, and they want to raise enough to pay their direct expenses. So they basically need to raise more than 31.7 million. And I think I have on here, yeah, how you figure that out. So in order to determine that, take the amount that the company wants to end up with, 31.7. Add your direct expenses only. That's the 1,457,000. And the way we do it in the industry is we then divide by 1 minus the underwriter spread. And that gives you $35,845,405. So that's how much money should be raised from this entire process. Then what we do to find out how many shares need to be sold, we just divide. And the number that we divide by is the offer price per share that the underwriters are going to charge those institutional investors when they sell the shares. So notice the number in the divisor is 33.78, not the number that the company is going to receive, which is at 31.25. Any questions so far on that part?
Can you repeat that 33.78? Why we use that instead of $31?
Sure. The $31 is how much the company is going to receive. It does not include the investment bank's fee. The $33.78 does. So that's why we want to use that price. The easiest way to think about it is just say, if I need to find out how many shares should be sold, take the total amount that needs to be raised and divide it by the IPO price. And the IPO price is also called the offer price. You will see those terms interchangeably. And that price is the price that the investment banks are selling to the Fidelities and Vanguards and Putnams of the world.
Is there any way that this question could be reworded, or is this how it would look for basically every problem? Like,
No, there's lots of different ways I could put it.
can you go over like one different, because I feel like I'm memorizing how to do this way because I see the problem and I haven't seen like another way that it could look. What can change
Okay.
what can you change, if that makes sense? And it would still be the
Yeah.
same
Well,
thing.
what I could change for, I could change what I ask you, right? So what I could say is, how much is the investment bank going to be paid total? That's one question. I could say, I'm trying to think of another way I could put it. What are the flotation costs for the company? That's another question that I could ask. So the information I provide will probably be pretty standard, but the questions I can ask can be very different. To find the investment bank's fee, there's lots of ways to do it. One way is to say the investment bank is going to earn the difference between what they paid the company, which is $31.25 per share, and what they receive from the people they sell the shares to, which is $33.78 a share. So in this example, they are receiving $2.53 a share. So if you multiply that by the number of shares sold, that is their total fee. So to help Pharma Development Company raise 31.7 million, the investment bank is charging 2.68 million in this example. I think this other example, I think it's on this page. I do go through indirect costs, this is one that lots of times trips people up. So let's talk about this for a second. It's the same example, except I added this sentence here. The shares traded at $42.68 after the first hour of trading. What are the indirect costs? So keep in mind, the indirect costs are costs that the company is going to incur, but they don't always write a check for them, and they can be hard to calculate. So in the real world, we don't spend a lot of time talking about all the indirect costs because they're just too difficult to estimate. But you can estimate some. So I'll just show you this example. So the indirect costs in this particular case are the $830,927 plus the amount of money the company didn't receive because the shares were priced too low. The company should have received more money per share and it didn't. That's what we call the underpricing. The way you calculate the underpricing is you take where did the shares trade after the first hour or so of trading. We normally do the first hour. Some people do the first day, but normally in my examples, I'll tell you the first hour. And subtract that from what the investment banks sold the shares at when they sold them to the institutional investors. That's the underpricing. So that $42.68 minus $33.78 represents the amount of money the company didn't receive, but they should have. So if we add the underpricing to the other indirect costs, that gives us total direct costs. Total indirect costs, sorry. Sometimes the question is, well, what is the percentage of indirect costs to the amount raised? And if that's the question, let me just go here. Why is this not letting me go? All right. For some reason, my mouse is absolutely frozen here. Well, I'll just have to talk through it. If I ask you what is the percentage of the indirect costs, take total indirect costs and divide it by the total amount raised. And that's the percentage. There is, I know you asked me about another way to put it. Sometimes what I've done on exams is I've pulled up a newspaper article. Let's see, which one was I just looking at? Let's go with this one. All right, I'm going to share my screen so you can see this. Okay, so to get at your question of, well, how else could I put it? So this is a newspaper article I think I showed everybody in class. Soaring biomedical IPOs raise questions about money left on the table. Money left on the table is the underpricing. Okay, so this article is all about how all these IPOs have been done and they were underpriced. So in this article, here's an example. This company, Chimera Therapeutics, it talks about their IPO. And it says they sold 8.7 million shares at $20. So in my exam, I might put this sentence. And they boosted the offering to 8.7 million at $20. And then my second sentence might be, the shares rose to $33.26 after the first hour of trading, something like that. How much is the underpricing? The underpricing would be $33.26 minus this $20 times the 8.7 million shares that were sold.
That makes sense. Got it.
Okay. Looks like we might have time for one more.
There was a question in one of our group assignments. I
Okay.
can't remember exactly what it was, but you're like, what's left over after all the expenses? And that tripped a lot of people up. Could you go over a problem like that?
Right. Let me see if I can find that problem. And this was on IPOs.
I think so.
Okay, it's probably this one. All right, let me share my screen here and then you can point out which one. Oh, I know, I see the question you're talking about now. Okay. I'll show this to you. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this question down here. Royal Company wants to raise 51.5 million to open a plant overseas. To achieve this goal, the company decides to do an underwritten IPO to raise the funds. It hires an investment bank who estimates that legal, accounting, SEC, taxes, and other direct costs will be $1,455,000. Royal anticipates that its indirect costs associated with the process will be $587,934. The investment banks also estimates that the IPO shares can be priced at $31 per share. Royal agrees to pay the investment bank a spread of 9.5%. How much money does Royal Company actually receive from the IPO after direct expenses? So I put this question in here because I wanted everybody to see the very first sentence says the company wants to raise 51.5 million. So that's how much they want to have. Now, they need to pay all these direct expenses of $1,455,000. They also have to pay the investment bank. So because of that, they actually need to raise more than 51.5 million. So that they have enough money to pay those people. And then after they pay the investment bank and all the expenses, what they want to have left is 51.5 million. So for this question, you actually didn't need a calculator. I'm literally saying to you, what is the amount the company should net after it pays all direct expenses? And that is exactly the amount of money that they should have wanted, which is 51.5 million. So the answer is in the very first sentence. But it's tricky, right? Because you got all these numbers floating around, and so you just kind of have to sit back and think, okay, wait a minute. Why is Royal doing this anyway? Oh yeah, they want to raise 51.5 million. So if they do this IPO and they don't raise that, big problem, right? Because that was the whole reason for doing it in the first place. In this case, the IPO was successful, and so that's exactly how much money they should have had after expenses.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? No? Okay.
I have a question about further review.
Okay, go ahead.
So I understand that you have practice questions out there and everything. Is there a way you could give us a practice exam?
No, I can't give you a practice exam, but you got a lot of practice questions out there. I think between the study guide, which must be like 10 questions, the other time value of money questions that I posted in Canvas, I think that's like another 9 questions. You can also go back and redo all your homework questions, and I put how to do that in the study guide. So there's a lot of questions out there. You can also Google. Time value of money is a very popular topic. So if you just Google that, time value of money questions or IPO cost questions, these are all things that are in the public domain. You'll probably find lots of questions. Just don't forget to study concepts. That's one thing I do want to mention. It's more than just knowing how to do problems. Don't forget about concepts.
Thank you.
How many questions did you say it was?
It's 25 questions total on the exam.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope you have a nice day.
Okay, sounds good. Take care, everybody. I will see you in class this week.
Hey, Ms. Bush, before you go, I have a question.